All right, hello everyone. Get started here in just a few. Thanks for taking some time to join us this afternoon. My name's Aaron. I'm the Help Desk and Education Manager here at Above the Tree Line. You've probably heard from me if you've emailed support in the last couple of years. I'm joined by my colleague Shayna, who's our Senior Client Support and Education Specialist. She'll be monitoring the chat as I go and dropping some help docs in there that kind of correlate with the presentation today. So yeah, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat as I go. Shayna will be fielding those. You can also email support@abovethetreeline.com later on or during if you'd rather go that route. So I'll share my screen and get started. All right. All right, so I'm just going to be covering kind of the, some of the technical aspects of creating markups, the benefits to using them to communicate with your accounts, and then at the end I'll kind of cover some of the best practices and things that we've heard from buyers that are kind of the best ways for sales reps to handle markups. So to get started with creating markups, your publisher organization will first need to subscribe to Edelweiss catalog services or an independent publisher listing, depending on if you're distributed or not. And these two kind of go hand in hand. Catalog services allows you to create custom catalogs to market your titles, and then you can create markups within them to communicate with your buyers. Another note about catalog services, Edelweiss hosts the catalogs of all major U.S. publishers and over 95% of the U.S. front list. It's quickly growing internationally as well, especially in the UK. So it's a really good service to look into if you aren't already subscribing. And again, to be able to create markups, you will need to have catalog services or an independent publisher listing or IPL. Some of the benefits of catalog services, it's a lot more than just markups. In addition to creating those and using those to collaborate with buyers on their orders, as I mentioned before, you can create custom catalogs. You can build up your Edelweiss presence by customizing a publisher page, with your branding images and information pages about how people can connect with you. It's a great tool for building buzz and reviews for your titles. And again, just the presence piece of it and having your titles visible to all Edelweiss users is a really powerful tool. You can also use Edelweiss 360 to track user activity on your title listings and your catalogs. That can be kind of a sales tool with all that data. So yeah, those are just a few of the benefits. So what is a markup? Just generally, it's a tool that gives sales reps an opportunity to connect directly with buyers, and allows you to annotate your catalogs to help inform buying decisions. It gives you a chance to pass along your advice and critical knowledge, insider knowledge that you have on your titles that you want to share with them, like print run info or just your take on a title, anything like that. Again, it gives reps a tool to really build relationships and trust and communication with buyers, and building that level of trust can really pay off, so to speak. Your publisher's catalog administrators, put a lot of time and energy into creating, really nice catalogs on Edelweiss. but and adding the title metadata and getting that all lined up. But developing your sales rep markups takes it a step further and really personalizes the catalog viewing experience and tailors it to what those buyers need. And why create markups in Edelweiss? I already spoke to a few of these in my last slide, but just to kind of go over them again. The first one is a bit obvious and kind of assumed, but Edelweiss's catalog services and the markup process completely eliminates the need for paper catalogs. It allows all of it to happen on the site, which obviously saves a ton of resources and time. It also helps facilitate remote meetings with buyers and streamlines the buying process for them too. So it saves a lot of time there as well. It also allows you to kind of share the workload between reps. It just, again, saves a lot of time and streamlines those processes. I'll get more into that side of it later on. And finally, it gives you the opportunity to continue building strong and trusting relationships with your buyers, and to help inform their buying decisions and just do the best you can for them. So there are already around 20,000 plus booksellers and buyers who are already using Edelweiss to order titles and interact with sales reps. So if you don't subscribe to catalog services yet and you're considering it, most buyers are already using Edelweiss and are accustomed to the markup sharing process, using that to kind of build their orders. So, a lot of those buyers are already here. So it's a pretty easy process to begin facilitating markup shares and, them creating orders and sharing those with you. So, just an easy transition there. So now I'll get into some of the basic markup elements. We'll go over the notes themselves and then some of the other specific elements. We'll also briefly cover adding suggested order quantities. Those aren't technically part of a markup, but they work hand in hand. And then once we're finished with all that, I'll dig into some of the methods you can use to share your markups, and then some general best practices and tips. So the first element obviously is just the note itself. That's that field that's circled in my screenshot on this slide. It's just the spot where you add your annotations to the title listing. You just add, the detail you'd like to pass along to your buyers about the title that you're working on. It'll often include private information that isn't added to public title listings in metadata, stuff like print run info or planned publicity for a title. That's really good stuff to include. We've heard from some buyers that we've worked with over the years that sometimes when they have a really good trusting relationship with their rep, they might not even reference the title metadata, some of it, at least like the summary and stuff. They might just go off what you have in your note. So it's a really powerful tool that can be utilized to really inform their buying decisions. And some technical details. There's a 5,000 character limit on markup notes, so you can't go over 5,000 characters. You can also adjust the font size and font color and other formatting in those notes to make them stick out, make them a little easier to read for folks. The markup note priority, you can add these title by title as well. It's basically a way to feature or highlight certain titles within the catalog. These are markup specific, so it doesn't affect the catalog view in general. Like for anyone viewing it, it's just markup specific. It defaults to being not set as anything. And it's kind of one of those things that's best to use sparingly, just for titles you want to stand out. Like I said, you can make titles featured, you can highlight them or make them high priority if you want to draw more attention to them as buyers are browsing your markup. Featured titles will appear with a blue outline around the title entry, similar to what's showing on this slide here. Highlighted is with a yellow outline. And you can also mark titles as low priority or even skip. You'll see in that screenshot as well, in the little pop-up thing. Basically, you and your buyers can use these priorities to kind of filter the catalog. They'll show up on the left-hand side of the page as a refinement. And you can, it's a really handy tool for buyers because, you know, if they wanted to only look at the titles you've chosen to feature or highlight, you can select those on the left-hand side of the page and only work with those titles. It can be a really useful tool for your buyers and for reps to kind of whittle down a giant catalog. You know, if you're working with a lot of titles, can be kind of a quick way to keep things organized. And, you know, with the skip option too, it can be, you know, if there's a title you don't think your buyer should focus on, you can mark it as skipped, and that'll communicate that to them. Markup tags are a quick and easy way to document kind of short bits of information that you want your accounts to be aware of. It can be another useful organizational tool, like down the road. You know, you could add a local author tag if the author who wrote the book you're working on the markup for, if they're from the store's general like area. You know, you can add like a rep favorite tag for titles you really enjoy, or co-op deals or promo codes, things like that. It's really whatever you think works best for you and your store. The possibilities are really endless. And, you know, if you don't know where to start with these, you can always touch base with your stores and the buyers just to ask what they might find helpful for that organization. Comparable titles or comps, they're part of the title's metadata, but there are ways you can highlight those default comps that are added to the title listing on the publisher catalog admin side. You can also, there are ways to add comps to your markups too. It's a quick way to give your buyers an idea of what other titles might have sold similarly to the title you're working on in your markup. So as you can see here in this screen, you know, you can basically see whatever store you have selected when working a markup. You can see there if they subscribe to analytics, the store, you'll see their sales data, stuff like, you know, on hand quantity and on order, other stuff like that. It can basically give them an idea of how that title you're marking up might do in their shop. We'll get into more of the best practices and everything with comps later on, but just generally, you know, adding good comps can really help speed up the buying process for your accounts. And again, like stores that subscribe to analytics, you know, they'll see this info too on their end when they're working through a catalog, looking at your markup note. So it can really, you know, if the paperback version of a title, you know, sold really well, that's definitely one you'll want to add as a comp. If you're marking up the hardcover listing, you know, it's just a good indicator that it might be one to bring into the shop. Another part of it that I mentioned briefly is you know, being able to add your own comps. Like if there's a title that wasn't included in the publisher's default comps, you can click this Find Additional Comps button, and that'll let you bring any title you like into that markup. And another part of that is highlighting comps with this star icon right here. That can be on the left side. Not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but Yeah, you can highlight those comps. That basically just communicates to your buyers that it's one to really focus on. Buyers can also choose to only show the comps that you've highlighted in your markup on their end when they're working through things. So it can be a useful tool to kind of, only show them, if they choose that option, they'll only see the ones that you deem, valuable and worth considering. So suggestions, they aren't technically part of a markup, but they're definitely worth considering when you're tailoring those markups to specific accounts. They really go hand in hand. Suggestions are account specific, and they'll become visible to that account in that catalog, for those titles as soon as you enter them. It's a little different from a markup. They don't need to be officially shared like a markup does. They're just automatically visible. We'll get more into sharing markups later on, but I wanted to mention this briefly. As I showed in the screenshot here, you can select an account from the far left on the blue markup toolbar, select suggestions over to the right, and then as you're going through the catalog on your end, you can add quantities in that orange bubble as suggested order quantities for that account. So in this example, for the next page, this rep thinks that 22 copies of that book might be good for them. It's just another tool to build up communication and a rapport with your accounts and build up trust. It's another tool, kind of like markup priority, to use carefully and not be unrealistic with suggestions, because that's kind of a quick way to throw the account off and maybe lose some trust. If you add suggestions, buyers can actually choose to accept all suggestions, and that basically takes all of your suggestions and just throws them into an order automatically. So if they really trust your opinion on what you think they should order for their store, they can just go that route, and you can basically choose what quantities they should have for each title. So that's another powerful tool you can use there. It's also a really handy way if accounts aren't as familiar with ordering in Edelweiss. You can kind of create an order, either on your own, or you could collaborate with them on a sales call, add them as suggestions, and then to generate that order on their end, all they'd have to do is accept your suggestions. So as I mentioned earlier, one time-saving and energy-saving tool is using a colleague's shared markups kind of as your own. There are a few ways you can do this, bringing a colleague's markup into your own markup. One way on the left-hand side screenshot on this slide, you can create a brand new markup in a catalog. And when you do that, you'll have the option of selecting a markup that's been shared with you to automatically populate on those title listings when you're viewing that new markup. You can select certain markup elements if you'd like to leave some out, or you can just move them all over to your own markup note. There's also a way to bring in colleagues' shared notes in the when just title by title as you're viewing a catalog. In that other markup note section, you'll see if they've shared a markup with you, you'll see their name appear there. This is the right-hand side screenshot right here. Again, it'll only appear if they've shared their notes with you, and you can just click their name there. It'll bring up a little pop-up window, and you can choose to add that and append it to your markup note. And if you already have something written, doing that will just kind of, like I said, append that to your note. Just kind of add it in there. There's another option that isn't pictured here. to pull in colleague notes is when you're creating a copy of a collection that's been shared with you. If one of your colleagues made a specific collection from a catalog, they mark that up. If they share that markup with you and you want to make that collection your own to adjust it, do whatever you want with it, there will be an option there to copy over their markup as well. And then that'll allow you to kind of edit it, the notes and the collection as your own. Another handy tool that saves a lot of time and energy, again, is exporting and importing markup notes. It's just a quick, easy way to move markups around, but there are some things to be careful of when you're doing this. Basically, on the markup toolbar, when you're viewing a markup, you'll see two little cloud icons, kind of in the middle, the far right, pictured here. And if you click the cloud with the down arrow, that will export your markup to an Excel file. And then that file can be sent to colleagues outside of Edelweiss. And then they can use that file to import as their own markup. And then they would do that with the cloud, with the up arrow icon on their end. It's really important to be super careful when doing this, though. If any field in that Excel file is blank, for any markup element, any title listing, it will, when you're importing that, it will basically take that as like a blank field, and it will overwrite anything that's in the markup. If there's anything in the markup you're importing that file to, if there's a blank field where you've maybe added something manually on your end, that blank field will overwrite that. Getting into the weeds a little bit, it's a little tricky to describe, but just definitely worth double checking to make sure that any blank columns that you have in that importing, the file you're importing, just to make sure to take care of those if you've already been working on that markup. Want to make sure to delete any blank field just to make sure nothing's overwritten with that blank field, basically. This tool, even though it can be a little tricky, it's a good way you can collaborate with multiple colleagues on like a giant Omni catalog or something. You could each create a markup for a specific section of a catalog, and then basically from there you could export those notes. You could all export them and then combine them on like a master Excel file, like a master markup file. Then you could use that, import that into the catalog with that cloud up arrow icon, and then you'd have the full catalog covered without having to actually go through and mark up every title on your own. It's a really good way to collaborate with folks. So as far as personal markup visibility, when you're viewing catalogs, you can control as a rep, what markup areas automatically appear to you when you're viewing titles. All these settings live in the other actions menu, and these will stick once you select them. So it's not like a setting you have to reapply every time you open a catalog. If you aren't seeing the markup note area, with the priority and the tag section and the just regular note area, or if you're missing the suggested quantity bubble, that orange spot where you can add suggested order quantities, make sure to check out other actions because that's where all those options live. Another piece of it, this is kind of something we don't always cover a lot, but there are options to set default markup note preferences. If you have a preference on what font you want to see as your markup, you can adjust the font color and the font size as well. you can set your defaults, but you can also go back and actually, edit these settings like note by note too. If you don't want your default color to be red for every note, you can go and make certain lines red in a given markup note. So you're not tied to those necessarily. There's also an option to use the inline markup editor. Basically, having that checked just keeps the markup note field like kind of in place and right below the title listing. If you uncheck that, it'll make the markup editor kind of pop out into a smaller window. So again, it's really just your preference, whatever works best for your workflow. So now I'll get into some of the different ways to share markups with your buyers. This could also, go for how you share with your colleagues and reps as well. But, with the focus on sharing with buyers, I'll explain some of the necessary setup that's required to make this happen before markups can be shared. So the first step in that, to be able to connect with your buyers, is adding them as a contact. It's really crucial. It creates the connection in Edelweiss, because your buyers can't add you as a sales rep as a contact. Only you can add them. So it kind of keeps control of that, but it just needs to be done on your end. And the main thing here is to make sure that the email address you add as a contact is the same email that your buyer uses to log into Edelweiss. If it's not the same email, the connection won't be right, and you won't, the markups you share with them won't actually make it to them. And then, when they go to share orders with you, they won't see you in their list to share orders with. So it's an important step. After you've added individual contacts, you can organize those contacts into groups if you'd like. This can be a really big time saver, a really handy tool to make the markup sharing process a lot easier. You can share with a given group with one click instead of going through your entire contact list and selecting individual users. You can organize those into like in this screenshot, Midwest buyers, or whatever it might be, just to save a lot of time and allow that markup share to go to a bunch of people at once. So this is kind of the most common way to share a markup once it's completed. You can do this just on the blue markup toolbar when you're viewing a catalog or a collection. There's a little up arrow right next to shares, just below markup. You can select individual users here or contact groups. Like I said, there's a little drop down right here, or you can select entire accounts if you want to share with an entire organization of users. There's a little technicality with that option, sharing with an entire account. If you choose to do that, basically only the people from that account who are in your contacts will receive like a share email. It won't go to everyone. So you can basically make that markup visible to everyone in that account, like everyone that's part of a store's Edelweiss organization, but you won't really bug people that aren't in your contacts that you haven't connected with directly. To kind of go off that, sharing your markup with users, it'll send them a notification in Edelweiss, and the markup will immediately become visible on their end. If you'd like to give folks you're sharing with an extra nudge, you can select their name in an organization or group from this shared with section. And then just below, kind of at the bottom, you can email checked shares, and that can send the markup and whatever customized message you'd like directly to them. a great way to just connect a little more directly with your accounts and add a personalized touch to it. Yeah, it can just be a nice way to make sure people receive them. Another part of it is just about sharing markups in general, is that any changes you make to your markup, they'll become visible to the folks you've shared with immediately. You don't need to reshare markups anytime you make edits. Any changes you make will automatically affect what the buyer sees on their end. You can also send multiple markups to multiple users, groups or organizations in one swoop. This option lives on the people page. It's not an option when you're viewing a catalog or a markup. When you're on your people page, it's actually in the other actions menu. You can select contacts first to kind of pick out the people you want to share multiple markups with, or you can select them later within the markup share tool. You'll see here, if you do select folks, you'll want to use this option down here at the bottom, actions unselected. If not, if you just want to kind of build that list, as you go, you can just click share multiple markups, and then in the resulting window, you can just enter the catalog name, select the markups, and then select all the people you want to share with. It can be a huge time saver and really streamline the sharing process. If you want to take care of sharing an entire season's markups, at once with everybody, it can be a good way to do it. All right, I'll get into some of our tips and just some of the best practices for creating markups now. It's a little bit nuanced and kind of subjective to your goals as a publisher and how you like to communicate with your buyers and how your buyers like to be communicated with. A lot of it really just depends, but there are some general best practices that we've found. So as far as what buyers want, in a markup, if you're just getting started creating them, you might be wondering, what they really want and what information is necessary. A few years back, we sent out a survey to independent booksellers across the country, and we analyzed the results. Some of it's here in this slide. They let us know that with markup notes, your personal impression of a title, your opinion is really important. Also, information on print run and planned publicity was really helpful. The publicity piece can really help folks get a feel for how much oomph your marketing team is going to put behind a title, kind of giving them some insight into what titles will be advertised broadly and what might draw the most interest. Those titles that they'll definitely want to have in store. There's as far as tags go, adding again your opinion on what titles you think are the ones to focus on, your favorites or your rep picks. That can be a good tag to add, along with promo codes and discount codes, that apply to certain titles. Those buyers found those really helpful. And in that survey, we found that not all buyers, but some hide title content when they're browsing markups to kind of clean up their view. And that's like the title summary and key selling points and other elements like that, just to focus on your markup, your thoughts on a title, the kind of personalized info. So it can be a really, really powerful tool to build up trust with your buyers and continue those relationships. Comp titles, we'll get into those on the next slide. So some of the best practices. A few years back, we collaborated with a veteran buyer from Maria's bookshop in Durango, Colorado, and she offered her take on comp priority and some of the best practices when adding them. your markup. As far as a general priority goes, this priority is kind of in relation to the title that's in the catalog you're marking up. So, the first priority, in her opinion, is focusing on the, adding as a comp title, the different formats of the same title. Secondly, similar titles, and, most recently published books from the same author, and that's also considering the book format, making sure the comp, with different books, making sure that the comp, might be the same format as that main title you're marking up whenever possible. Again, this all ties back into the analytics data and the buyers being able to reference, what sold well for them in the past, and having relevant comps. It's just a really, really powerful tool for them and a big time saver. And last in priority are books by other authors. She thought, they're less relevant, but their main purpose is maybe helping the buyer get a feel for the genre and how that sells in their store. Another piece of it is when you're creating markup, you'll have the option to add the title itself that's in the catalog that you're marking up to the list of comp titles. That basically sticks that title in the comp section. It seems a little weird, but the reason is, when a buyer with analytics is going through, they'll see all their past sales history for that title, along with, if they already have it on order, if they already have it on hand, that'll all be there for them. So that can be a really, really nice thing to do for your buyers when you're creating those markups. Another note from, when we collaborated with the buyer at Maria's was, avoiding ebooks and audiobooks as comps, just a little bit, less relevant than some of the other options. And really that less is more. And you want to avoid adding too many comps that might overwhelm things. Generally like 4 to 12 comps is ideal. More than that isn't really necessary. All right, so I'm going to jump in to showing a few of these things in action. I'm going to unshare my screen and jump over to the site and show you some of these markup elements and how to share and things like that in real time. So I'm going to unshare. All right, I assume you can all see that. Let's say I'm in a publisher account right now. This would be like the reps view. I would just open, this is just a test catalog that we've created. So I'd be going through, let's see. So I'd probably, I might start with the markup note here. I don't really know what to add. Add info on a fake print run that I'm just making up. Something like that, whatever you want. And I also, I can adjust this font, can adjust the color if I want to make it really pop out when people are viewing. You can also create like a bulleted list that can be kind of a really nice, like clean way to add different points. Click save when you're done. Let's say I wanted to make this, highlighted title. I could also make it featured. And again, like I was saying earlier, those priorities you add will be refinable, if that's a word, right here on the left side. So, you or your buyer could go here and go, click to only see featured titles. That kind of just limit their view of the catalog. You can also add tags here, like rep pick or a promo code, whatever you want. I could also keep scrolling down. Say I didn't think this title was relevant to that store. I could click skip as the priority. Going back up to this first title, considering the comps. Let's see. I guess this isn't a super good example here, but you'd want to make sure you could always, since it's kind of limited here, you could add other formats of this book if they exist on Edelweiss, or other titles by this author. And I guess this is one, so I might highlight that one. And again, this is just a test account, so there isn't any data here. But you can kind of base what comps you highlight off of that data that you'll be able to see for the account you have selected right here. Again, I'm just in the above the tree line test account, so there's no real data there. Let's say I wanted to add a few suggestions to, let's see, just random numbers. So yeah, let's say this obviously isn't done because there are other titles to mark up, but let's just say I wanted to share this note with a buyer that I've already added to my contacts. I would open up a quick way. Would be opening up this shares window, the share markup window, I should say, from that blue markup toolbar. I can search. Well, let me make sure I get the right one. I have a few accounts. So I'd find the individual that I want to share with. Again, you'll also see your groups here and just full accounts too. But for this example, I'll just share with a single user. It looks like my colleague Joe has already been shared with, but I want to share with Aaron from above the tree line too. So I click that. If I want to really make sure that Aaron gets it, I could click that. Oh. Click that and go to email check shares. His email is already there. You could add a message, whatever you want. And then you can adjust the subject line to, and you can email that. Kind of show you what that looks like. Hopefully it goes through quick. Yep, there's the markup share email. This looks all weird because my email doesn't download pictures automatically, but that will it'll look something like this. That markup share email sent directly to your buyer with that customized message that you can add. And then, so once that's shared, I'll kind of work backwards now and show you what it'll look like on the buyer's end. Let me just go back. So this is the account that had that markup. This is a buyer account that I shared that markup with. It'll be in the account's notifications right here. That rep shared a marked up version with that test catalog. So it'll be there. You can access the markup. The buyer can access the markup from that notification, just like that. Once it loads. or they can access it right from that email too if they follow that link. That might be the quickest way. So on the buyer's end, this is what they'll see. They'll see your markup note there, your tags, and yeah, they'll be able to see suggested quantities too. This account just didn't have that selected, so they'll see that, and that accept rep suggestions option that I mentioned for the buyer lives right down here. So you'd select, the titles. They would select the titles they want to create an order for, and they could accept your suggestion. So it's a little bit of how it works on the store's end. Let me jump back real quick. So this is on the reps end again. I'm away from that buyer account. I'm back in a rep account. So this is that spot. You have all these contacts. If you want to share with multiple, here's that one tool. You can select the catalog, select the markup, and then you can, you have to search your contacts. But we can do stuff like that and just build up a list. And each of these markups will be shared with each of these users. So it can be a really nice way to kind of share with a bunch of people at once. So yeah, that's all I was planning to share. Let me unshare and then go back to my presentation 1 second. All right, that's all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have plenty of documentation on our website about using markups that you can check out. There's also a link there that I think Shayna will drop in the chat about catalog services. Again, that's the subscription that's necessary to be able to create markups and share those with your buyers. So yeah, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. I see one. I haven't been monitoring the chat at all yet, so I'll take a look at that. Feel free to drop any more you have in there. We'll be hanging out here for a little longer. You can also email support@abovethetreeline.com with any questions you have following up. So I'll unshare my screen. Check out that Q&A. Thanks for your question, Janet. Let me just read through that real quick. Yeah, so the markups are catalog specific. They don't follow the title or follow the ISBN. They just live within the catalog you create a markup for. If they're viewing, they won't, if you create markups in one of your catalogs, your buyers won't see those markup notes in a distributor's catalog. You would have to create those notes in that catalog and then share those with your buyers. So that's kind of the other piece. It's just for folks to be able to see them, you do have to share them directly with them too. So yeah, that answers it. Are there any others in the chat that I missed? Maybe those are all the help docs. Oh, and there's one thing to clarify from. Yeah, let me see. Can you clarify if we have to make a separate custom catalog for each different markup? No, you don't have to do that. You can have multiple markups per catalog. So your front list catalog can have 20 different markup notes each for a specific account if you want to personalize things that much. Let me just make sure I'm getting the whole question. Nope. Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to duplicate the catalog. They can all kind of live in that same catalog. All right. I didn't realize my my camera was off. Yeah. So any other questions? I don't know if anyone can. I don't think. Yeah, the settings are weird, so you can't talk, I guess, or unmute. But feel free to drop anything else in the chat real quick. If you have any questions, or again, you can email support@abovethetreeline.com, and I'll probably be the one fielding your questions about markups. So I hope this was informative and might help folks decide if they want to subscribe to catalog services, or folks that already do, give you a better idea of how to use markups. So thanks again for taking the time to join us today, and have a good rest of the week. All right, thank you. Bye.